my big boy shoes on and my sweatshirt, and that means it's time for another episode of Mr. Rodder's Neighborhood. Today we're going to go over some actual neat stuff that I found. Doesn't seem to be too, I guess, common these days. And this is the way I've always done it because it's just the way I've done it. All right, so home block prep. I haven't seen anyone do home block prep in a long time. Most of the time they just take it to the machine shop, clean it up, put some cam bearings and freeze plugs in it for me, send her out the door, right? Well, when I was a young kid, we didn't have the money or the time to wait for block prep, so you learn how to do block prep at home. The only problem is finding a candidate that's reasonably decent enough shape that you can get away with your home block prep and things turn out okay. But I was going to show you how to do some of the basic things that aren't too common knowledge anymore and easy to get by on. It's easy on the wallet. So basically you're looking at, you get your block, it's all torn down. Now you need to clean it up. This one here I cleaned myself. I know it doesn't look like, show winner or nothing like that. It's virtually just a, 55-year-old block. But it is a 70 SF block that's going to go in my stage 1. The big problem, with them is just getting them cleaned up enough to where the majority of the paint wood here, you don't have surfaces in your water jackets that are going to keep the expansion plugs from sealing correctly. The other thing is the cam bearings. When you knock the cam bearings in yourself, how do you necessarily do that? It's not common practice for people to do that unless you have the tool for it. I looked at it like I had a lot of motors to do, and I'd taken one to the machine shop to have them put cam bearings in it, and I took them TA Performance dual groove bearings. I pretty much live and die by those things. I think they're smart, and if you're doing a Buick, it's probably what you should be putting in there as well. But they wouldn't put the bearings in like the directions had asked. I had to fight with them, and I finally just said, all right, load the blocks up. I'll take them home. And I bought a cam tool, a cam bearing tool, right? So the cam bearing tool probably cost $180. It would have cost me about that for just one block to be done. So the tool has paid for itself many times over, but we're gonna show you how to do cam bearings and freeze plugs in a regular engine. I mean, hopefully you already know how to clean it up. And if you don't, I'll give you a basic recipe. There's 2 ways to go about this. I always start off with, you just get the block, you want to warm it up, right? Set it out in the sun. If it's cold outside, throw it in front of a space heater or something, but get it fairly warm. The reason for that is it makes all the oil and grease and stuff that's stuck to the exterior of the block come off a lot easier, as well as the gaskets. They come off a lot easier when it's fairly warm. After it's warmed up, I use a basic solution of, the first I start off with is a 2-part deal. I start off with kerosene. I put kerosene in a water bottle and I squirt it all over the block and I scrub it down with a brush, okay? Once you get a majority of the boogers and everything off, because there's gonna be a lot of crap on the block, once you get a majority of it off of there, then I come back with, and you can buy this stuff. I use the purple cleaner from Lowe's, the industrial strength cleaner, degreaser from Lowe's, but I've used Purple Power in the past. Just make sure you wear gloves because it says on the bottles to cut it, 50% or 30% or whatever you're using. I don't cut it at all. I put on gloves and I don't cut it, and I put it in a spray bottle and I spray it on here and I clean it off real good. I scrub it with a brush again and then I hose it off. Now, I have seen guys, instead of using either one of those, use oven cleaner, and oven cleaner will get it just as clean as this. I've never used oven cleaner. I've always done the kerosene and then the purple degreasing agent. But what you're wanting is a block that's relatively clean. Now, if you're looking at this and saying, oh God, that thing's pretty rusty. Yeah, well, you know what? It is somewhat rusty, but that's a good thing because that means you don't have any oil and crap left on there, right? And most of this stuff will clean up, and most of it's just surface rust that you can rub your finger on and it goes away. Okay, so this block has already had the oiling mods completed on it. Generally, that's like one of the first things I'll do without even cleaning the block. It all kind of just came down to just time and what I was doing. But so we'll start on basic method of putting in freeze plugs. I'll also show you how to do a cam bearing. And then hopefully I'll explain it well enough that you can understand it to do it at home. And it's not something that's overly hard, right? I'm not trying to take anything away from the machine shops out there. In the past 20 years, there's been like half of them have went away. And now the half that you do have are the ones that are generally pretty good, but they're stacked to the rafters with just basic work. And they're not going to take the time to do your $150 cam bearing freeze plug job. They're going to look at the other jobs that somebody has them build a motor for a couple of grand. That's what they're going to tackle first. They're in it to make money. I mean, that's how you stay open. If you go after chasing the $150 jobs, you're going to have them stacked to the rafters and you're never going to get anything done. So they pick and choose which jobs they do. So I decided I'll pick and choose the jobs I do. And that way, when I do take something to the machine shop, it's something that I necessarily need to get done. Now for our block prep basics. Here's the basic tools that I'll pretty much use for installing freeze plugs. This is about as old school as it gets. Here is the bag of freeze plugs, part number EP119BR. It's a brass freeze plug for Buick big block. You'll have 2 of the smaller plugs for the centers, and then you'll have 4 of the larger plugs that go around the block. The other plugs in there, one is for the cam, and you'll see that's the only one that's not brass. Well, these are meant to be like, you don't have problems with these rusting out. So you got your cam plug, and then you got your 2 oil galley plugs that go in the front of the motor that are switched into place. But that's normally what comes in your kit. And so to start this off, what you normally do is just find a socket that's basically the same size as the freeze plug that you're going to attempt to install. So I picked this big 1.5 inch socket here. It's actually a 3/4 inch socket, but I just put an adapter on there. You just need something to hold on to while you give it a whack with the hammer. The other thing is the old school Indian head gasket shellac. I've used this a billion jillion times. I have not had one leak yet. I have heard of some other stuff that guys use from Mercedes. It's a great compound. There's another one from Ford that's a great compound. But I've always stuck with the Indian head gasket shellac. It's pretty much from Permatex. It's available at just about any parts store. It doesn't cost very much either. You got acetone back there. Hey everybody, I'm acetone. And then shop rags. Okay, so there's your BFH. So you can drive these plugs in, but it doesn't take a lot to really make them go in. So if you look at the block here, there's 3 individual angles inside this this opening for your freeze plug, your expansion hole. All right, so there's a beveled edge here that makes it easy to start this expansion plug. Then you got this flat part here, which is technically your sealing surface. And then it looks like it might be opened up and re-beveled on the inside is kind of what it looks like. I don't know what that would be for, but I think it's probably just the way that it's ground and it's the tool. So I've already cleaned all of the surfaces up that we're going to be putting the expansion plugs in here with some acetone to get rid of the extra crap that might be hiding out on the sealing surface. I don't want anything to hold it up from sealing. And really that's what, if you look at my plugs I've already wiped down with acetone as well. I wanted to get any oil or any type of anti-corrosion stuff off of them so that they do have a good possibility of sealing. But here's some of the crap that was inside the expansion plug holes. So it is always prudent to do that. Almost every block that I've ever done this to, even ones I got back from the machine shop and had them professionally cleaned, still has crap like that inside the expansion plug holes. So you do want to take the time to wipe them out and clean them off really good. So I'll put you back up here on the stand and we'll get started on the block. Okay, so the socket that I have that I showed you is essentially for these big 2-inch plugs. Okay, now the 2-inch plug, I use a 1.5 inch socket. It fits on the inside. I go for the inside. I've seen guys do them on the edge, but if you get it off center, it's easy to catch the edge of the block and then drive it in crooked. I have better luck with something that sits inside but is still kind of on the outside edges of the freeze plug. You don't want something that's so small that's driving it in the center and all your force is being applied to the center. You want to apply as much of it to the exterior side of the plug as you can. All right, so first things first is you start off your Indian head. Normally you pick whichever one you're going to do. So in this case, we're just going to start with the most forward plug. All right, so this stuff is like tar. You don't want to get it on anything that you don't really want it on because it is hard to get off. Acetone does a really good job. Hey everybody, I'm Acetone. But normally I just put the Indian head around the opening. Okay, and there's plenty in there. And you just grab yourself one expansion plug, socket, and your BFH. All right. So I line them up. Then you whack them home. And you'll see it going down. There is tools for this. Okay, we're home. All right, so let me wipe it off real quick. I wipe off the excess Indian head with some acetone. Here, everybody, I'm acetone. Need to go in a little bit more. You know, I got this wiped off here. I think it needs another whack or two. All right, we're gonna drive it in one more time, a little bit more. Okay, so come check it out. All right, so what you're looking for here, when you're driving it in, remember when I said the first edge here is a bevel, right? Like you can see here on the back, the first edge is a bevel. Then there's like a sealing ring, and then it's beveled again on the inside. So you want to make sure that your sealing surface on your expansion plug is in mated surface, or mated with the sealing surface of the block. So as you can see, I drove it in. It's probably about 1/8 of an inch in from the bevel, which would mean that this is riding now completely on the expansion, or the sealing surface of the opening. Okay, so I wipe it down at the end with some acetone to get off the excess Indian head, only because it takes a while for it to tack up, and it does look bad when you leave all that extra crap in there. But this block, I decided this one, I was going to kind of make it look like a factory motor. I'm using brass freeze plugs only because I don't generally use the steel stuff anymore. The 455s, any of the engines that I pretty much put together, most of them aren't meant for daily driving. So
they'll never get the coolant circulating through the passages like they would on a daily commuter. A lot of them are going to sit a lot. So brass freeze plugs go a long way when you're sitting, when it sits a majority of the time, because even if it's just an old cruiser and you take it out every weekend, it still sits in the garage 5 days a week waiting for you to come in on that weekend. So it's going to have much more sitting time than it is anything else. So that just keeps them from rusting out. Brass does not corrode. So that's why they use those. So that's how you do a freeze plug in the home garage. Poof! And through the magic of video, the other 5 freeze plugs knock themselves in. One thing I didn't cover when I first talked about cleaning the block is the important thing to do with the block is you have to take all the plugs out. I take every single one of them out, right? Like the back of the cam, the oil galley plugs in the back, they all have been removed, okay? And then Moroso sells a block brush cleaning kit, and I generally just run the brushes through the oil galleys, through the cam tunnel, through the oil passages to the mains, to try to get anything out of there that might necessarily be sitting in there, leftover oil or just crustaceans or whatever have you. But you don't necessarily have to get that brush cleaning kit. You can go to a local store and get a bottle cleaning kit used for baby bottles. They pretty much do the same thing. Okay, but what you want to do is you do want to clean all these passages. The other thing I haven't done yet, and I didn't think it was really necessary for the video because it's kind of like an understood, but I do need to chase all the threads in the block so that everything is cleaned up, especially like your main cap, the threads for your bolts for your main caps, the head bolts. Those are the major important areas, but if you also look that all of the surfaces that are machined are very shiny, and I do that because, well, and I'll tell you how I do that. I do it with a rotary tool with the old, like the green 3M pad, but I got like an old, worn out, super dilapidated green 3M pad that I use on these because I don't want it taking any surface off. I don't want it taking any material off. I just want to get the rust and all the crap off of these machine surfaces so that when I go to put, like, say, a new gasket on there, there isn't a piece of old gasket still hanging out on there. And I noticed that the old worn out, like, green 3M pads that you use for your rotary tools do a really good job, and they don't take any material really off the block. Matter of fact, they don't even round anything off. So other than that, though, we'll get back onto these cam bearings. So just make sure you go through the basic cleaning processes, and the cleaner you can get it, the better it's going to be, right? But this was all green 3M pad, so you can see it looks fairly clean, but that's about it. There's nothing else extra knocked off.